Good afternoon, Mr. Hausman. How may I help you?
Hi. I'm looking for the worst room you could possibly give me. You know, the one right by the ice machine, or perhaps next to a room of screaming teen girls headed out to a Justin Bieber concert.
Why would you want that?
Well, that's what I always get. So I figured if I asked, I might actually get a great room you're holding for someone who's never going to show up later.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Oh, are we live now?
No, well, we're live to tape.
Oh, I like it. Okay,
but
like,
you know,
come on, Mark.
it's funny. I did an interview with somebody, and I'm trying to do more of that Mark Maron coming in the middle
exactly.
of the conversation
right.
type thing. So
everyone who comes on the show is like, "Are we taping now?"
Yeah. So I guess that's exactly what we're doing.
We're taping
today.
now.
Hey, welcome to the No Vacancy podcast. I am Glenn Hausman. I'm so glad that you are listening. You know, after the first show last week, I got such great feedback from you guys. I'm really looking forward to doing a full series. And as I promised, I'm going to have a regular rotating series of guests, and I've got one of those here right now. You already heard talk.
That's me.
Dave Eisen. How are you, sir?
What a pleasure! I want to first say what a pleasure to be on your podcast. I've been waiting for this ever since I took the job, and now it comes to fruition. You know,
it is. All right, so let me just set the stage a little bit here. I am, of course, president of Rouse Media, an editor at large with QuestX, and I promised I would say that every single show. And
Plug.
Dave here,
I love it,
is my editor in chief over at QuestX.
I am. Thank you, Glenn, for the introduction. I think it's funny actually because when you were teaching at NYU, you could have been my teacher there if I'd taken your class, and now it's kind of flipped a little bit.
No, it's definitely flipped a little bit because now I got to take orders from you, and you are quite the taskmaster.
I can be that way. Yeah. I tried, but I kid gloves. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah. But what I really love is the freedom that I have with this particular aspect of my job. I get to write about the stuff that I want, and a lot of those things we're going to be talking about here on the No Vacancy podcast as the months and years go by. But make sure you check out my column twice or sometimes even three times every week.
If you're getting frisky,
I know
3 times.
I'm feeling frisky this week. Let me tell you.
Feel away.
I know. So all right. So 3 articles, hotelmanagement.com.
Hotelmanagement.net.
Hotelmanagement.net.
Yes.
You know what? I'm still used to the damn .com.
There's a funny story. I could tell you that really quick. There's a funny story about that. Hotelmanagement.com is a website that we have gone after. Obviously, it makes sense. It is actually owned by a former NBA player, Mark Madsen. He owns the website. And if he's listening out there, Mark, why don't you sell it to us for a better offer than you came with last time. So that's the story behind that. Well,
that's a shame, and it seems to really be hurting you guys a lot by not having it. So maybe the asking price should go down, sir.
That's all right. We're still managing some nice traffic numbers, so we're good to go.
That's pretty cool. All right, and I also do not have a .com. My company is Rouse.media, which is still freaking people out. They don't know how to deal with that.
Well, we're starting a new concept here. Who needs a .com? Right?
Exactly. You know, I was at Delta Airlines, the airline that I have a love-hate relationship with.
We've read much about that.
Yes, I cannot stand them anymore because they are not loyal to me. Yet somehow, even though I keep trying to break up with them, I can't.
You just keep going back.
It.
It's like a battered wife syndrome.
It is exactly what it is. And last time I was on their website, I need to send my flight itinerary to a friend, right? So I put in my email address, Glenn@rouse.media, and it would not accept the email address. It kept saying it's invalid.
Oh, because you weren't that .com guy.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me. Hopefully that can be rectified.
Too far. We are too far ahead of technology, and much further ahead than Delta is, so they're never going to hear this podcast, so they won't know that we're bashing them.
There you go.
So, a lot of fun working with you. In the last couple of weeks, we've been all over.
Yeah, I've been traveling, right?
Most recently, the AHOA event, Asian American Hotel Association.
One of my favorite conferences of the year this year in Nashville, which is a great city. It's always just great to go down there and see how AHOA is such a like I said in one of my stories or columns. It's huge. I mean, over 3,000 attendees, but it's still a very small knit, kind of tight community. Obviously, it's a family affair. People know each other, so it really has a great kind of aura about it.
Right, but I think that what we need to do is we need to explain exactly what AHOA is. Since I'm doing this genre-bending podcast, we're talking to road warriors who may not understand that half the hotels in this country 60% are owned by people.
I've heard.
60.
Yes.
You know what? I checked on the website. They still say under 50%.
Well,
wait, I heard
AHOA's website?
Yes, but I heard 60%. So
that's the number I go with. It sounds better than 50%. Better.
It's like
when you're in high school, 60% is a D, right? So 50% is like an E.
Yeah.
If you don't want that.
No, I don't want that.
I don't know where I'm going with that, but it makes some kind of sense to me.
I one time in college, I got a D in a class in astronomy, and I was really proud of myself because I didn't go to one class, I never opened a book,
right.
and I got 60% of the information right on the test.
It's
I'm
astronomy.
a genius.
It's all in the stars, right? Right, Glenn? So
the Asian American Hotel Owners Association is an association that started back in the 1980s.
Come a long way.
Asian Americans of Indian descent. Most
Correct.
of them happen to come from the Indian state of Gujarat in the 1970s.
I think you pronounced that correctly.
Thank you. I'm very proud of myself for that one. They started buying hotels and getting into the hospitality industry because nobody else really wanted to have anything to do with them. Part of the great American tradition of hating the newest group to arrive in American shores.
There you go.
Right? So the Asian Americans were marginalized, put on the sides of society. This was the only way that they seemed to be able to break in. Mm-hmm. They got... one guy got a hotel, flew over his family. They all stayed in the one hotel. Then they bought another one, and then they bought another one. And it seems like it's one giant extended family that now owns 60% of all the hotels in the country.
I'm sure that number will be going up. It's an extraordinary story, and you see, I mean, they're really passionate about what they do. It's interesting. It's very much when you go to these AHOA conferences I've gone for the past few years, I love it because it also has that kind of political element to it. I think last year Rick Santorum spoke at it. Mm-hmm. And as you can might be able to, and now I'm missing his name from the Texas governor that was there also
this year or
last year.
Past year.
Yeah.
Rick Perry,
the man. Yeah, he was wearing his nice thick black spectacles.
Nice
to try to rework his image. Didn't really help, but it's a very kind of as you can expect, most people there, the members have a conservative kind of background because many of the issues, the economic issues per se, the minimum wage that we've been talking about, how what minimum wages are going up to $15. I think in LA. I mean, when I was growing up,
all of California by 2022 going up 50 cents a year in 16, 17, then $1 a year after.
I mean,
that.
I remember we were growing up. I was lucky to make $4.25, right?
Well, you were lucky. I made $3.35 at my first.
Well, you're
job.
older than me. That's why.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
So there's that. There's the NLRB, the attack on the franchise model. There's all these kind of issues that are very much conservative kind of talk points, and you see there that they're very political. AHOA obviously has that lobbying arm where they're down in Washington D.C. lobbying Congress on these issues. So I mean, there's just all kinds of that's the great thing about AHOA. There's the hotel issues, there's the political issues, so much back and forth with that. So it really kind of comes out, I guess, during the conference. They got some great speakers. Peyton Manning was there, so
Yeah, he was. And he was really interesting. Mr. Wonderful spoke this year.
Mr.
Kevin
Wonderful
O'Leary
spoke from the Shark Tank. So I mean, they draw a pretty
right. So basically, what we're saying is this association is absolutely something that's huge, that's very influential,
integral
part of the hospitality industry. Without AHOA, there would really be no hotel industry as we know.
Who would step in? I'm wondering now who would own all these hotels.
That's kind of not.
I don't have any money. It ain't gonna be me.
No, no. Are you the type of guy like me that goes to all these events and see all these guys with all these hotels and wishes you were like one of these owners?
You know,
right?
I go back to my room and I cry.
I do that too
for a little bit.
We should have a therapy group. Maybe have a little group therapy. All the editors could get together.
Yeah, we could get together, and maybe if we pooled our money, we could buy maybe some motel on the side of.
We could get all together. We could get sliver equity.
Equity, yeah, exactly.
in an unbranded economy hotel.
But we could damn run it, couldn't we?
I think we could, or at least we could tell people how we'd like to run it.
Right.
I think I'm much better at complaining about things in the hotel industry than actually getting things done in the hotel industry.
That's what we do as writers. We bring up all the complaints and the bad stuff, but maybe in the future there's something for us.
Well, there is, and this year's event was a pretty notable one. They had a record-breaking crowd at this event. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Right.
And what's interesting with the association is they've kind of moved from that first generation of Indian Americans that we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation into now their kids, and in some cases third generation. And wow, they are so different. They grew up within the hospitality industry. They know every single bit of how to run a hotel, and now they're all looking to become moguls and being multi-unit property owners.
And they're bringing that kind of millennial mindset. A lot of these, we talk about. I mean, they're so young, and I'll be 40 next month, and I can't. It's amazing to me. But you but you see them, and they're so much younger, but they're so intelligent and smart, and they really know kind of they soak it in because they've been living it. They've been probably 8 years old, changing beds in their father's hotel. So they really have from the ground level up, and they're getting ingrained in it at an early age. And when they come up through the ranks, they know how to run a hotel already. So I think it's a great kind of you see this kind of transition from the first generation to the second generation, and that the hotel industry's in good hands.
I mean, I have 20 years experience in this business, and I'm 45. And those guys have 20 years experience in the business, and they're 25.
Right.
And I think that really makes a massive difference in how they operate the properties and some of the things that they're doing. And the sophistication of the owners now within that organization are so much more than I think a lot of owners that are outside the organization.
Yeah, I mean it's a different kind of mentality. I mean they're owning these maybe smaller hotels, a few of them. They're not like these huge corporate, like a REIT per se, private equity owning hotels, which might not have, maybe they're not as much a part of it on a day-to-day basis. These people, I mean, they live and breathe this, right? I mean, they own the hotel. They operate the hotel. They're doing everything for the hotel. An owner probably is in there maybe working the front desk at some point, right? They do every single job. So they're at every kind of touch point, really. So I think that shows when a guest goes to their hotel that they care about it so much that you're going to get great service when you go in there as a guest, and it's pervasive throughout.
And that's what I love, and it's the love of hospitality that I see reflected in all of these guys that are coming up and the more established people. And one of the
I'll tell you the one thing that does stink about it.
Oh, tell me.
Every single time I go there, it's lunchtime. I can't get a sniff at the Indian food line. You have two lines, right? It's the Indian food and the American food.
Dave, you're making a big mistake.
And well, I'm not going to, I'm very hungry at that point. As a writer, I'm staying there, I'm really expending a lot of energy during these general sessions. I get there, the line is around the door, and I can't get my chicken tikka masala that I want.
That's bad. That is bad because you should be leaving this general session early.
But then I wouldn't be doing serving my readership, Glenn. I have to serve my
All right, you may want to serve your readership. I want to serve myself some chicken tikka masala. I get online. I'm always there when they're still opening up the buffet lines. I knock it out. I go to a back corner, hide at a table so I don't have to actually talk to anybody, woof it down, and then move on with my life.
Every year for me, it's the same sad ham sandwich. It just doesn't compute.
No, it doesn't. And I'll tell you what, the best thing I love about the Indian Americans being a huge part of the hospitality industry is Indian buffets at most events that we go to. The most important thing I think I've learned in my entire career is that Indian food scales up with buffets better than any other cuisine.
I would tend to agree with you. It's you can't really go wrong with And my favorite thing is the papadums. Those crackers.
Yep.
We should start. That's the new potato chip right there. I don't know why
those are so good.
I could sit in front of watch football all day and I'm popping papadums. No pun intended. Like it's going out of business. So maybe there's something there. Maybe we start some kind of thing there. But you're right. It does transfer to the buffet line quite well, I must say. But I broke into something you were talking about.
No, that's all right. I'm now thinking about buffets, and I completely don't recall what I was talking about.
How does the Vegas buffet? How does that stack up against the Ahoa Indian buffet?
I'll tell you what, you can't compare them really on equal footing. Right. It's just not fair because the Ahoa buffet is a moving roadshow, and those are permanent places. Yeah. But that being said, I'm not seeing the benefits of the Las Vegas buffet any longer. They've gotten so expensive at this point, and a lot of them are becoming so froofy that you could go and have a great meal with your friends at more of a casual type of a restaurant and wind up spending the same or less and not feeling like you have to overindulge on crappy food.
I hear you. I'm just just give me an In-N-Out burger and I'm good.
One of my buddies had In-N-Out burger last week and was sending me pictures of it while we were in Nashville, and that was rude and selfish, and I didn't get to my favorite barbecue place to be able to send him pictures back and make fun of him.
That's another. See, we're talking about all these franchises we should be starting. The In-N-Out burger in New York would kill. Now I hear that the reason they won't franchise an In-N-Out burger, you have to be a certain mile or distance away from their kind of where all their kind of meat comes from, and I guess New York just doesn't. Too far away in distance-wise.
Or they could just open up another one. I remember reading in the New York Times 3 or 4 years ago, Danny Meyer, who started the Shake Shack thing, swore up and down that he was never going west.
Oh, really?
And now there's one at the brand new MGM Park that just opened up.
He must have saw money,
in Vegas. Yeah.
Always follow the money.
Well, you got to follow the money. He went public, and now
right.
He's known for his fine dining places, but he's making gajillion dollars off the burgers.
Now, speaking about money, and that's a great segue. Are we?
Yeah,
I'm on your show. We have to talk about Starwood, right?
Yeah, Starwood, Marriott.
Crazy,
right? I don't know if you guys have been following the saga. I'm sure you have if you've been following the show.
Right.
My guess is you guys know what's going on, but in case you didn't know what the deal was, last November, Marriott said, hey, we're buying Starwood. Then a couple of months later, Anbang, a company out of China, says, no, we're going to up the offer. We're going to buy Starwood. No problem. Then Marriott parries back with an offer. Anbang was going to parry back with another offer, and then they said, forget about it.
I love the fact that you just employ the word parry in there.
Well, I would be the only one. I'm actually getting paid by the Lovers of Parry Society $1.50 every time I say that.
Lover of parry, that's very good. Yeah, it's the ultimate game of one-upmanship, as I've been calling it. We were all, the media was aghast. First of all, we thought, if you recall, we were like, Marriott, they came out of nowhere.
Right.
First of all, to with their first bid, we didn't think it was going to be. Then there was rumors of IHG. There was another Chinese consortium that was not the Anbang one. But then when Anbang come across, and we know them from obviously buying the Waldorf a year and a half ago, whatever.
Was 2.1 billion?
Yeah, 1.95.
1.95. Yeah,
what around
same difference.
There you go, same difference. And that's where it all started. These insurance groups from China, they were coming in now. All this capital to deploy, they're looking for safe haven. There's rules now that the Chinese government relaxed how many assets you could percentage you could own that were overseas. So, then it was kind of a domino effect, and we saw Sunshine Insurance Group like a month later buy the Baccarat Hotel for another record. It was like $1 million per room, whatever it was. It's monopoly money, right? It's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, this back and forth, it's like, it's great because it's kind of like a soap opera. And literally every day, it was such a fluid event. It was Marriott's bid, then Anbang comes back, then Marriott comes back again. Marriott holds a press conference from Cuba where the lines go dead during Arnie Sorensen speaking, which I thought was just perfect, right? And then Anbang comes back again. They're like, oh, Anbang's going to win it. And then we hear, Friday morning, whatever it was, Anbang is now walked away. And it's weird because China, we don't know what really went on. They're saying that maybe they couldn't close the deal, and there was also talk of the Chinese regulator there not allowing it to go through because they would then owe too many foreign assets against their balance sheet. So it was all kinds of weird stuff going on. But I think ultimately what we saw here was that for me, I think Starwood long-term is in better hands with Marriott than it would be with a Chinese group that doesn't have any real chops running a hotel.
Right.
And the consortium, there was 2 other private equity groups involved. But I think long term, Marriott makes a good
case. I tend to agree with you. I think it's right. It is in good hands with Marriott, although I would issue warning to hotel owners and suppliers to the hotel industry that it is a bad deal, I think, for all of those kind of guys. I think that Marriott's getting so freaking huge at this
30
point.
brands now, right? That's a lot of brands.
Yeah, I always, what I always wanted to do when I was on stage at these panels with these CEOs, and I had Arnie Sorensen on the stage at a HOA in front of 3,000 people.
Let me set it up. And my man Glenn was on stage. 3,400 people in
something like that.
I mean, you must have been a little shaky up there. I would be. My hands probably shake a little bit. But you got all these great CEOs on the panel. Arnie Sorensen was there, and let me tell you something. That man is a well-groomed CEO.
Polished.
I mean, that hair and those teeth.
Oh my God.
You really have to. I mean, and then Kristen Sett, who's got the greatest tan ever going, you know what I mean? Like, in the perfect haircut.
Well, if I was CEO at Hilton, I'd feel that way too.
Do you think they must have a stylist that comes in and tends to them, right? Fingernails, the whole 9 yards. I mean, they have to be. They're on like CNBC and that.
And they're certainly earning enough that they can
Well, I'm sure they have the company pays for it. Of some sort.
Yeah, that would be great. I find that the wealthier you get, the more stuff you get for free or is included.
What's that all about? All these celebrities? You actually put out I saw that story about how celebrities now, they go to the clubs and they sit there. Scott Disick from not Real Housewives, excuse me, Kardashian fame, goes to a club and sits there for an hour and collects a 6-figure paycheck.
It's sick.
How do I do that, Glenn?
It's very easy. Just marry a Kardashian and give up,
are
all
any
dignity.
of them available? Isn't court? What about there's
I don't know. I think a couple of
Kylie.
Kylie and I don't know what they're.
I think she dates a guy named Tigga, and I don't have a clue.
Tyga? Tyga? I don't know. TYGA. I don't know how you pronounce that.
I think it's Tyga, but I don't have a nickname like that. So
I'm having a real hard time. Oh, you've got nicknames.
I can rap though.
Yeah,
I won't do it here though.
That's a shame. But you should see him. He's performing live at the Aria Casino in Las Vegas.
And why do you know this? It scares me.
Just saying, you're performing live.
Oh,
at the Aria
okay.
Casino.
I'm performing.
I'm booking. Yeah, man, I just booked it, baby.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Something's got to replace this Humanity show that they're pulling out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would do well on stage.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
Some outfits.
So I always wanted to get one of these CEOs on stage and say, "Okay, name all your brands, go," and see if they could do that.
Great.
I know.
If you could have asked Arnie Sorensen's name when you guys integrate, name all 30 of your brands. You know what? I think he could do it.
You think?
It's like naming all the presidents. You have it in your head like some kind of
right.
What is it called? A mnemonic?
A mnemonic device. So you can remember it all.
Said something,
You could create a song behind it.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. They have handlers, man. They're prepared for this kind of stuff. Have you seen?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Have you seen these CEOs? Their PR flack with them. It's like the people that they're their handlers. They hold their teas, their coffees. They have the linen brush, like the valet. They probably, when it's raining, they got the umbrella going and stuff. It's
that's great. I always find maybe you see this with some CEOs. Some know absolutely everything, and then there are others that turn to their PR person constantly and say, "What's that? What's the answer to that? What's the answer to that?"
I see that,
right?
And I kind of sit there and embarrassed for them.
I know. I mean, how do you?
How come I know that and they don't know that?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, exactly. Why do I know how many hotels you have and all this and that, and you don't?
Yeah.
But I get that they're focused on some of these higher level issues and maybe not getting.
Well, that's another good one. We were talking about how the Starwood Marriott gives them such scale that I think it's really going to help them with distribution. We talk about all this, pushing people to book direct, but also negotiating leverage with the Expedias of the world.
They see $250 million in immediate savings on an annual basis when the deals are put together.
When the deals are put together.
Yeah.
I mean, that there you go. It's hard, though. I mean, because you have, like we were talking about before, when you have Expedia spending $3.5 billion per year on marketing, how do you compete with that? That's a big chunk of change.
Well, they also have better ads. I think the OTAs do better ads than most of the hospitality brands.
They have the Gnome, right? That was Travelocity.
Yeah, and I love that Captain Obvious.
Yeah, the new one. Well, the new one's good, where he's running for president, actually running. Yeah, it's you're right. They do, and they're more ubiquitous, obviously, because they're on the air all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But what you see with a lot of these hotel brand, they don't have. I will say, does killer ads La Quinta.
Yeah.
They've got some good stuff.
It's funny you should say that. On my old show, I talked to the former CEO of La Quinta, and what I really liked about it was they take the ads, and they understand we're in a Netflix generation right now. So they know you're being forced a lot of times to watch ads if you're watching it on Hulu, for example, right? So they change the ending part of the ad every single time.
Exactly.
And I think that mixes it up, engages you a little bit, and makes you want to focus and pay attention to it.
They create characters, and I think a lot of what we're seeing now, Wyndham's doing it their own branded content, what better way to reach? They have a captive audience, and they come to your hotel, and they have branded content now that they show on their in-room televisions. If you can get a TV to actually turn on, one of my biggest pet peeves. I've yet to be in a hotel where I can turn the TV on.
Well, I've given up turning on the TV because the way that I use a hotel room is I just bring my own device.
Okay.
I'd use my laptop or my iPad, and I don't even think about turning on the television.
One of your 2.5 devices that every hotel guest brings nowadays.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I've got my laptop, I've got my iPad, I've got my phone.
Right.
That's
3.
Yeah, I've got my Victrola that I bring with me on the road.
That's a
old school record player.
Okay, yeah, I bring my hurdy-gurdy when I'm on the road, actually. And I play some tunes for the...
Yeah. And, of course, Viewmaster. I can't go anywhere without my
Viewmaster?
My Viewmaster.
Man, that is old school.
I know. Well, I promised myself in 1979 I would never forget the 70s, and that's my way of remembering it.
Well, I was 3 years old in 1979, so... Yeah, okay.
Nice. So, what was it like not seeing Star Wars, the original Star Wars films in the movie theater?
When did that come out?
77, 80, and 83.
Star Wars is like one of your favorite movies of all time.
It is.
Your favorite movie of all time?
Probably. Maybe Revenge of the Nerds might be my favorite one, because that's really more of a motif about my life.
He's probably one of the greatest characters of all time.
If I could only if I could only burp like Booger,
Yeah.
or have someone design a javelin
If
for
this
my
was-
limp-wristed throwing style, I'd be thrilled.
If this wasn't a PG-rated podcast, I could drop some lines.
Right.
But I don't want to do that now because I'll get. There's the FCC. Does the FCC?
Just my podcast,
control
nobody
this?
else's. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want, but yeah, it's I don't know. Star Wars. I've never been the big kind of sci-fi fan. The Babylon 5s of the world.
I missed that.
I like Star Trek. Don't get me wrong. I loved old Twilight Zone, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But I've never been a Trekkie, so to speak. I like the more dramatic films, Glenn. You know what I mean? The On the Waterfronts, the Marlon Brando films of yesteryear.
Yeah, you could have been a contender, huh?
I could have been, yeah. My father says it to me all the time still,
Really?
It's kind of sad.
That is.
Every time I go home
I don't think that's.
for Passover.
I don't think that's sad.
Home
I
for
think it's
yeah.
that's kind of a dad move, though.
That's right. He's just always breaking my huevos.
Yeah, it's like my dad. If he got onto something, he would never, ever, ever drop it.
Yeah.
Like, for years, it would just go on and on.
Oh,
and
really?
on
He
and
just
on.
doesn't know when.
Yeah, or if he thought that I liked a particular food,
yeah,
it would always be there.
Oh,
and no
that's
matter how
nice.
many times,
That's loving,
but
though.
no matter it, absolutely loving. But no matter how many times I said, I really don't like this. That part didn't register.
he would still put out the same
all the-
pistachios that you never
exactly.
touched.
Right, and
That
he
doesn't make
knows.
sense.
He knew I was damn allergic to pistachios, and they would make my throat itch. My throat would close up. Wait, maybe he was trying to off me. Now
It
that I
could be.
think of it.
Interesting. Was there some kind of insurance thing going on?
I
Or
don't-
it's usually
I-
with the wife, though.
I don't know.
Something like that.
I don't know. I'm a little worried about that now.
yeah.
All right,
I'm sure he loves you.
Dave, we're gonna have to wrap it up.
What? Do we have to go? This
We're
has
at
been so much
25
fun.
minutes.
Wow, we went over our
already.
allotted time.
I know. I got to get into the next part of the show. We got a
Okay.
great interview that
Wait,
we got to
there's more?
run.
Okay, I didn't know.
So-
I thought I was the main attraction.
No,
here.
you are the main attraction.
Is there a final word or anything like that?
I'm going to
or
give
we
you
just
your
close
final
it?
word right now.
I wasn't prepared for that.
Oh my God.
I'll leave it at this. The hotel industry, I think, has another. This year is going to be another great year. 17 is, we're kind of at that top of the cycle where you're seeing a lot of, new supply coming online. What I will say is this: that the hotel industry is in a good state, year over year increases in RevPAR, but we're seeing that disconnect between the hotel industry and what's going on in Wall Street. And I don't think the Wall Street necessarily understands the business at its core.
Yep.
And we're seeing valuations go down. We're seeing stock prices enervate. So there's an interesting interplay between Wall Street and kind of, Main Street, because the hotel industry is a local business. So I'll leave it at that. I hope I served you
Where
right
can we
on
find you, David?
in my chair. Oh, you mean like in? Well, you can find me on Twitter at
There you go.
David Eisen 3. That's the number 3. That's my. Twitter's my favorite mode of social. That's where you'll find me. And
Those other two David Eisens are total.
yeah. The number 1 and number 2, you don't want to follow them at all.
No, absolutely not. But you know what? I love your topic. I love your use of the word enervate, and we will have you back next time. As you know, I'm going to have a regular cavalcade of people. David is going to be one of them. Love your attitude.
Rock and roll, man.
And I want to thank you guys for listening to Dave, and we'll be right back with more No Vacancy after this.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Get a $50 Best Western gift card when you stay 2 separate times. Plus, enjoy breakfast and free high-speed internet. Rewards members get even more when you book direct at bestwestern.com. Visit bestwestern.com for terms and conditions. Each Best Western branded hotel is independently owned and operated.
Get going.
So everything here now is on.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what I'm trying to do with this new podcast is just kind of have a more Mark Maron style intro. You kind of come in the middle of the conversation. So we've already done that.
Yes.
And I've now ruined the my sneaky bit of trying to copy somebody else's methodology. But that's all right. I don't really care.
That's why we love you.
Adrian Kurre with me, who's the global head of Homewood Suites and Home 2.
Perfect.
By Hilton. With Hilton Worldwide. And, I'm really looking forward to talking to you today for a couple of different reasons. I really like the whole idea of extended stay and what you guys are up to. Because as much as I like the traditional hotel experience, once I discovered extended stay, I found it to be just much more pleasant as a guest, as a road warrior, as a guy that's always traveling. And if I have my family or something, it just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty. I mean, you and I both being in a position where we've got twins at home, we know that you need a little bit of space from them every once in a while. You need, and the beauty of Homewood and Home 2 is you can get that space without without danger. You're there with them, and so it's perfect on the transient side, family side, to be able to fill that transient side of the business with that personal travel. And then when the hotels are focused on the extended stay side of it, that's what makes these two brands so powerful, and that's what makes them so good in the cycle of hotel world. In that 7-year cycle, we always perform extremely well because we've got the best sales teams in the world, and they're focused on the extended stay. And then you fill in with that transient business for what you didn't find in the extended stay side, and it just makes for great operating margins. And we really know how to take care of the people when they're there. So
you really do. And one of the things I do want to get across is you don't have to be staying 5 nights or more. Yeah. If you're only there for a couple of nights, it's still a great option for guests. And I love your point about saying it's great for the whole family, because everyone has a little bit more space, it's a little bit more comfortable, it's a little bit easier. But this is a departure for you. You spent 18 years running a Hilton Garden Inn?
Yeah, 19 years with Hilton Garden Inn. So and it was an awesome run. I listened to John Madden, the famous football coach, and John Madden once said that nobody should be the head coach of an NFL team for more than about 10 years. And his point was that if you keep doing what you've always done, you start to maybe lose that edge that you have. So being there for 19 years, there are things that I look back on now that I've made the move over with Homewood to Home2 and said, boy, maybe I should have started that a little bit sooner. One of the big things that Garden Inn is doing now is they're revising the prototype. And I started that process here about 6-7 months ago. But what we kind of came to the realization was we didn't need the pavilion sticking out on the front of the building anymore, that was a nice icon, and we were very consistent with that for a long time. But that it wasn't what we were known for anymore. It was urban adaptations in places where it just wasn't needed. Well, by changing that and pushing the pavilion back under the tower, still keeping the light, bright, and airy feel to it, you can save an owner developer, $1 million in construction costs that help them return on their investment. And that I probably should have started a couple years sooner. And so I think Chris Nassetta, Jim Holthauser, and looking at what was going on with Hilton Garden, I mean, it's performing extremely well. But then given this opportunity to come over with Homewood and Home2, and what I love this. It was the most fun I had with Hilton Garden Inn when it was launching, and I had this wonderful opportunity. Home2, 80 properties, and I get to know. Next week we've got a Home2 Homewood conference, and I will be able to know all the general managers by name again. Hilton Garden Inn, it was 670 hotels in 23 countries, and this is fun. This gets me going in the morning.
It's really cool, but I think it's interesting what you said about that 10-year kind of a rule. I find like with great rock bands, they got about a 10-year lifespan before they lose their creativity. Yeah. And I recently made a big change in my career, and I know I overstayed my welcome for myself. Because after that 10-year mark, it just started to feel the same old, same old. I didn't feel as creative anymore. I didn't feel as connected or as engaged to the entire process. Yeah. So I think it's really good to go through a whole lifestyle reinvention. So for you, changing positions, it must be a lot of fun, and you must be free and open and really finding a sense of creativity that you haven't had in a while.
It's so much. I mean, I'll give you a great example of things that I look at. I have a big food and beverage background, and now I'm looking at Home2, and I just got out of Salt Lake City, which is kind of the central core of Home2, and there's 6 Home2s there. There's hotel number 2 and hotel number 80 that I got to see in the same day. And I'm looking at the food and beverage side of it, and I'm talking to the general managers, and they're saying, well, when we get 120 rooms here and everybody starts coming down, and the buffet just doesn't quite work right, and it's not there. And so now my brain starts going. I'm thinking, okay, well, how do we make this flow better, and how do we make sure that the guests have a great experience and that they're getting the kind of breakfast that they want, and we're efficient with it? And that just gets me going. That was the fun stuff that we were doing. Garden Inn had most of that stuff all wired, it was all put together. And now with Homewood Home2, I have an opportunity to just go back and get that like you call it, the creative juices flowing again.
Yeah,
It's
I
fun.
think that's really what's rewarding. That's why I like the whole idea of mixing it up a little bit. And you guys seem to be on a tear at home too. I think I just saw like 28,000 rooms that are being developed right now.
Yeah, I don't. I can't even. I don't even know the number of rooms for sure. So the pipeline. Yeah.
The good thing
30
is,
months
I'm just
into
going to
it,
be
and I
like
don't
the
have it all.
presidential candidates. I'm going to say it as fact, and it doesn't really matter.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, it's for me. It's been an immersion program. So I came over in January, and I'm getting used to everything, and I'm trying to. With Garden Inn, I could name all the numbers, and I could tell you, all the countries and all that kind of stuff. And with Homewood and Home 2, I'm now in that phase where I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey's. And one of the things that Stephen Covey writes in his book is seek first to understand and then be understood. So I'm in the seeking first to understand mode, and I want to really understand everything that I need to know about these two brands. And then once I really understand them, then I can go out and say, well, how can I make this better? How can I make the return on investment for the owners better? How can I make the guest experience better? How can I help the team members just have a better time while they're there and do this whole thing? So we're really in that getting to know each other first.
Yeah, is it tough to fight the impulses to want to make change?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you at the same time, you really want to know absolutely everything and do that learning process you said. But I would think you just want to get in there and make your mark immediately.
Oh, yeah. And you there are certain things that you need to do that you need to make a mark quickly on. And those come in the terms of problem resolution and problem avoidance. You think about problems. There's an old wives' tale that if you have a guest and they have a problem and you do a great job of resolving that problem, that they become more loyal. And I've been talking to a lot of our partners, like JD Power folks, who will be at our conference next week, and they said that's a myth. That's not true. When a guest has a problem, only about 5% of the time, when you resolve the problem, even when you exceed their expectations, do they ever become more loyal to you. And so we don't do necessarily a great job of problem resolution. And then what we don't necessarily do is focus on, once you know what the problems are, what do you do to make sure that no guest ever experiences the same problem ever again? You look at the problems in the hotel, and you find that the same 5 problems are usually on the top list every month of issues, and it's the same thing for the brand. So we have to figure out how to identify what those problems are and resolve them. Now, I'm going to give you an example of a problem in Home 2, and it's really interesting. And it'll make you chuckle, but it's something that we got to fix. We do hard-boiled eggs in Home 2, and they sit on the breakfast buffet, right? And they're cold. And the guests have told us that they don't that some guests don't like their hard-boiled eggs cold. And so they will take their hard-boiled egg and they will put them in the microwave. And you know what a hard-boiled egg does in the microwave?
I would think it explodes.
It explodes.
Right.
Okay? So what we did was we put a little sign on the microwave saying, please don't put your hard-boiled egg in the microwave, it will explode. And then nobody reads it. So I'm on my tour.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and I'm on my tour, and every single person who's worked in that area said, well, we get probably one exploding egg a day. That's a problem. That's a problem that the sign in and of itself didn't solve the issue, and we've got to do something else. So you either you cut the hard-boiled eggs before you put them in there, or you do something so that you don't, because at some point somebody will get hurt. And so although it sounds like an interesting thing, hard-boiled eggs exploding microwaves,
right.
The point is fix the problem. So we're currently working on how do you fix the problem with hard-boiled eggs. I've just discovered in my own life the value of problem resolution and problem avoidance. I did my own little project at home where I started keeping track of problems that I had in arguments that I would have with people, and I started keeping track of them. And I noticed patterns in what was happening, and then what I decided was, let's fix those things before they become, so that it never happens again. And I think it happens to us a lot. I know that you're big into fitness, and I have gained and lost the same 50 pounds 8 times in my life. That's a problem.
Right.
And it's almost healthier to be heavy than to gain and lose the same 50 pounds every time. Well, I've got 4-year-old twins at home. I got to make it into my mid-70s so that they don't have to worry about their dad's health. There's a lot of things that can go wrong that I don't have control over.
Right.
So I got to control the things that I do have control over. So I'm exercising. I'm lifting weights. I'm not running marathons anymore. I'm doing high-intensity interval training, and I'm staying healthy. And what I'm trying to do is maintain my weight, problem avoidance because you won't most likely develop diabetes if you establish a weight. If you're weight training and your resistance training, your chances of breaking bones are much slimmer than what they would be if you're not doing that kind of training. And so problem resolution, problem avoidance is a big part of my life.
Right, yeah. Now, I want to talk about the fitness thing in a minute, but I want to talk about this problem resolution thing. I feel like we have a problem in society, and you're kind of getting at it, where we don't face the root cause of the problem. Right. We just try to slap a Band-Aid on the situation and pretend we've handled it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's putting a sign on the microwave saying "Don't microwave." That's putting the Band-Aid on, and it didn't handle it.
Right. And I think that you think it would handle it, but if you really evaluate a situation, you have to take it back to its root and where it comes from. And that, I think, is the philosophy that you did so well with Hilton Garden Inn, and now will be doing much, much more of it in your new role.
Yeah, it's getting down to it's understanding. I've become a big fan of the movie Moneyball.
Right.
Okay? And it's all about the data, right? And so you look at the data and you understand what is the data telling you, and then you take actions against that data. I think there's so much that has gone on that when you start looking at the data, and are you really resolving the core issue? Have you analyzed the data enough to get to what the core issue is? And then you have to take action, and that's exactly what we're doing with Hilton as an organization. We're doing it with the Stop Clicking Around campaign, and really looking at what are the core issues for a business, and let's put solutions out there that get to the right answer.
And I've been around in the business now long enough that I've seen a major change within Hilton Worldwide, and you've been there to experience it from start to now. A real cultural shift. I remember, I guess it's going back 7 or 8 years now. I think that people within the company were very uncomfortable with all the changes that were going on. And now I feel like everybody's really on the same page. And there's a totally different energy and vibe coming from the entire company that there was 5-10 years ago.
Well, it's so amazingly exciting when you look at this organization. And my wife and I were sitting down and we're watching all the debates. We're watching the Republican debates and the Democratic debates, and we're talking about things, and we're talking about many things that the politicians are saying about American business, right? And the fact that Hilton has a parental leave program that we didn't have before, that makes me very proud. We've got an education program for people to finish off their high school degrees, and the human resource part of this, and feeling good about working. We made the top 100 list of best places to work.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's just, it starts with Chris Nassetta, and he sets the agenda, and it rolls down, and Matt Schuyler does an incredible job of then putting programs in place that will benefit the people, and then you feel so good about working here. You feel so good about the processes and the people and listening, and we do our team member surveys every year, and we take action against those surveys and make sure that it's a better place to work.
Right.
And it is. It's a different culture than what it was before. It's big, it's huge, it's massive. There are 40,000 team members around the world, and trying to take care of that number of people is a huge job, and I think Hilton is doing the best job in the hospitality industry at the whole deal.
And you've definitely got a lot of positive energy behind you. I see the whole company really expanding globally in such a way. Now, I don't want to talk about Hilton Worldwide because we're really here to talk about what you do and that sort of thing. Plus, I don't want to get in trouble with a PR person who's hanging around
staring
here.
At
Lovely
you,
Christine. She's giving me dirty looks every time I look away. I'm just kidding. I don't want to blow back the secrets here in this business, but we have a lot of people that help out on the side. So I do want to make sure we get to your messaging that you have. What do you really want the owners and developers to know about the brands, and then what about the customers as well?
Yeah. Well, the first thing what I really want owners and developers to know about Homewood is that Bill Duncan, who is my boss, who is a brilliant gentleman, who is absolutely spectacular at what he does. I'm just making sure I get this in.
Yes, I like that. Someone's looking for promotion.
Whatever we can do. No, Bill has set me up for success. And so there is an old, misconception about return on investment between Homewood and Residence Inn. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to the fact that, and again, that we stuck on this idea of the one-bedroom suite. And it was a core part of our model. And it was much more expensive to build a Homewood than it was a Residence Inn, because Residence Inn transitioned off to the studio suite long before we did. And so we looked at that. We carefully studied it. We looked at guest perceptions and guest feedback and owner feedback. And we changed our prototype based upon all the data that we had that said we can go to this, we can lower the cost of building a Homewood. And we looked at honors costs, fees that we are charging, operational costs in the hotel. And now what I've got to do is break through that perception of it's less expensive or it's more profitable to build a residence in than it is Homewood, because we have reacted to all of those things. Great partners with great owners who are running Homewoods that we listen to, and now we're set up for success. So our new prototype, I think, puts us right in line with what Residence Inn has done in the past. Great organization, great company. But I think we're positioned where we've won 12 of the last 15 J.D. Power Awards 6 years in a row. We've got great consumer feedback. They like what we're doing with Homewood, so we've really taken care of those guests that are staying with us. Now we've got to help the owners. We think we know why an owner builds a hotel, and we are relatively sure that it's because they want to make money. Okay.
Interesting.
We think this is an interesting
I thought it was
concept.
for the glory of building the select service segment.
I do that every once in a while. Where I'll ask that in a meeting. Why are you guys building a hotel? And always there's one person in the room who will say, well, we want to be a part of the community. And then somebody in the room goes, oh, and but they want to make money. And their brand of choice will be the brand that they make the most money with. Well, we're driving RevPAR premiums against our competitive set. We've reduced the cost of building a Homewood. We're going to continue to look every single day that I'm here. There's 3 things that we target, and it's what our team thinks about. It's driving revenue, driving loyalty, enhancing owner profitability. And if we do all of those things, Hilton makes its money because our RevPAR is good, people are choosing us, and we do our part for helping Hilton Worldwide. But if we help our owners, look, how much can we help you drop that money down to the bottom line? Then it benefits them. We become their first choice for an extended stay hotel instead of the secondary choice for an extended stay hotel, and that helps us grow.
Right, and one of the benefits to owners of the extended stay model is you need fewer full-time employees.
Oh, yeah.
But how does that reflect in your ability to still service that customer that's staying in the extended stay environment and making sure that they feel that they're being taken care of in the way they want to be taken care of?
Well, Homewood has the highest customer of our own internal surveys. Homewood has the highest customer satisfaction in our organization. Guests love what we do, and it is. I believe it's because when you look at the extended stay nature, you get a chance to get to know the guest much better than you do in my Garden Inn days. Average length of stay, it was 1.2 people per room and 1.7 nights, right? And so it's kind of hard to get to know that person in 1.7 nights, right? Where you go with Homewood and they're sticking around. I read a book about 30 years ago by Kurt Vonnegut. The name of it was Player Piano. And in his book, he described a future where machines handle all the jobs, that computers are doing all the jobs, and that the only job that was left in his future that was done by a human was bartender. And it was a bartender because people didn't want their cocktails poured, and it's the Cheers syndrome. It's, the gang in Cheers. I think most of your listeners are going to understand what Cheers is.
I would hope so. Okay. Well, unless they're the young millennials. And
well, when you go in and when they went into it was Norm, you're here, and it was for the hospitality, and that's what Homewood delivers better than almost every other brand out there, because we've got a manager reception every night. We've got that complimentary breakfast every morning, and we have an opportunity to get to know our guests. Now, when you look at what we're doing as an organization, and you look at, for example, Digital Key. What we're doing now is we're analyzing what happens with Digital Key, what happens in our hotels when people can get their key and they don't go to the front desk to check in, and you miss that opportunity to deliver hospitality at the front desk. How are you going to do that in the future? We are set up for this perfectly, that manager's reception and pulling people in. All we got to do is come up with the technology which exists today of figuring out, okay, that person sitting over there is Glenn, and Glenn is a Diamond member, and we got to recognize him as a Diamond member. We got to thank him for his status as a Diamond member, and we got to make sure that he gets his honors benefits. So we got to figure out how to do that without that person checking in at the front desk. Homewood, Home 2 are set up perfectly for that environment.
Well, that's very interesting. So, and I think for the wider hotel industry in general, we have to think about how we're going to utilize technology to free up those people and not kick them out the door, but to have them be that advocate for the guest and and make that emotional connection with the guest.
The technology has to handle all the transactions, because the technology will handle the transactions much better than a human being. It takes all the emotion out of the transaction. So whether it's something as complicated as revenue management is an example that I use. Revenue management is an extremely complicated process, and if left to the human being in the hotel, there's an emotional side of it. You may not want to overbook your hotel because you're afraid of that walking scenario and having to put that person in a position to do that. Where the computer can analyze the data, and it can say, on a Wednesday night you should be overselling by 3 rooms, so you don't leave 2 or 3 rooms going without. And there's going to be a time that you walk them, but you take that emotion out of it, and that machine will make a better, more logical decision than what you do, as long as it knows the truth.
Right, exactly. And I love that we're moving from the transactional to the experiential in all facets of the hotel business. And I'm really impressed that you remember a book from 30 years ago.
I know, it's pretty good. Huh?
I can't remember anything that I read like 3 days ago.
I can't tell you, for some reason that particular book has stuck with, and I couldn't tell you the rest of the story. I do know that dogs in his book, that dogs were there only to protect the machines from human intervention. They kept the humans away from the machines. That's the only other part of the book. I don't remember what the point. I don't remember the ending. I don't remember what happened to the hero. I don't remember if it was a happy ending. I just remember that he's nailing the future. He nailed the future by saying that the transactions that we're having, our honors app is all the, we got to get all the transactional stuff on that honors app. But then when that guest comes through the door, we've got to deliver the light and warmth of hospitality for people, because that is the bartender position. That is what they're looking for when they come into that hotel.
Right. The only book I can remember growing up is Green Eggs and Ham, but that was a classic, and it helped me rhyme, which is really good.
How many times did you read that to yours?
Man, how about I still go Good Night Moon.
Oh yeah, my kid's favorite book is it's the Louis the Duck Homewood series.
Oh yeah,
so, and I'm not kidding you on that. They will sit there and they will read the Louis the Duck books. Yeah, they go in like 3 weeks streaks, but every night they will read Louis the Duck books. So.
And I could probably quote most of Pajama Time.
That's Pajama
classic
Time.
book. Yeah. The moon is up. It's getting late. Let's get ready to celebrate. It's Pajama Time. That's right. For anyone who has kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But, I've changed my life around big time. I was kind of going through an existential crisis. I kind of fell off that fitness bandwagon. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling a little doughy these days. I'm trying to get back into it. I'm very inspired by you. You are really great with the fitness thing. You've been doing this planking thing where you're adding an extra second every day. I think today
317.
I was about to say it's 317 on 317.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
Ooh,
yeah, I know.
I wonder, that won't ever happen again.
It will never happen again.
Oh, that was awesome.
I know. So good luck with that. But what I'm curious about is I can get back into it, and I am getting back into it when I'm at home. All bets are off when I'm on the road.
Yeah.
How do you stay disciplined? What do you do? What kind of tips do you have for me and our listeners to keep motivated?
Well, here's the biggest thing. My wife is a marriage and family therapist, right? And she has access to all of these seminars. And the one seminar that had the greatest impact on me was by a neuroscientist. And this neuroscientist explained to me how the human brain works. And she described your brain as having 3 different parts. You have a lizard brain, dog and cat brain, and a human brain. Human brain is that cerebral cortex. It builds hospitals. It makes those complex decisions. The dog and cat part of your brain, dogs and cats are happy and sad, but they don't build hospitals. They don't do that.
I thought it's the part where you just lick yourself.
Exactly. And then you've got the lizard part of your brain, and all they do is it reacts to the environment.
Right.
The place where your weight is controlled is in the lizard part of your brain. Now, if you think about it in human history, it's really only been the last, 70, 80 years where we've had complete access to food all the time. Before that, we were in that cycle of 7 years to feast to 7 years of famine, right?
Right.
So what the lizard part of your brain believes is when you are restricting your calories or increasing your calorie burn, it thinks the famine is coming, and it thinks that you're going to die because it doesn't associate weight gain with death. Your evolution associates starvation with death. And so it starts sending signals to your stomach that you have to eat. So it's got a set point. Once you get out of that set point, that lizard part of your brain is saying eat, 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 right? Do you know how long it takes you to change that set point?
2 weeks?
7 years.
Oh, God.
Okay. So
no wonder why I'm having so much trouble.
That is, and that's the reaction that when I tell the story, that's the reaction that everybody has.
Right.
So what that did for me was it empowered me. I said, I gained that same 50 pounds, and I would do the same thing everybody, if diet programs worked, you wouldn't have the 1,000 of them that are out there.
Well, the problem with diet programs is they don't address the root causes of any of the issues.
Right.
Again, it's going back to that Band-Aid.
Exactly. And so what I came to this conclusion was that I needed to have a different goal. I needed to have a goal that said that I'm going to get to this new weight, and I'm going to stay there for 7 years, because after 7 years, my body will now believe that this is my new set range, and it will do everything it can to keep me in this new set range. And so understanding that now, and understanding why I was struggling. Now, I'm 3 years into this. I dropped the 50 pounds. I'm 3 years into it. And I've done all the research to say I don't need to marathon run anymore. I don't need to do the 4 or 5 hours. So I'm high intensity interval training. So my cardio workouts are 40 minutes in length, 5-minute warm up, 5-minute cool down, with as hard as I can do intervals in between that. 2 minutes on the treadmill at about a 6.7, and 2 minutes and 1 minute on the treadmill at somewhere between 9.5 and 10.0. And I do 10 segments of that, right? But it's only for 30 minutes. And so at 40 minutes total, I've got an hour and 10 minutes from getting undressed to being dressed and back in my office, and I've got it handled. So it's the first thing that goes on my calendar is, where is my time slot for that physical exercise? I also discovered resistance training, that you're losing 1% to 2% of your muscle mass a year over the age of 40.
I misread it. I've been resisting training.
That could be the issue. You missed it.
Now I got to figure it out.
So if you and again now, I've got these 4-year-old twins. So my motivation is I got to make it into my mid-70s without them having to worry about their dad. Once I get in my mid-70s, by the way, and they're in their mid-20s, then all bets are off. They have to wipe the drool off my chin. They'll have to take care of me. I was at a race. I was doing a 5K, and I'm pushing a stroller, and I got Matthew and Maddox in the stroller, and they've got their little pretzel snacks and their water. And mile 2, I start going up this little hill.
Right.
And I'm doing a pretty good time, but I'm going up this hill, and Maddox takes a little sip out of his sippy cup. He turns around and he looks at me, and he says, "Go faster, Dad." It's like, you little. When I'm 80 years old and I'm in my wheelchair and I'm sucking down a scotch, I'm going to turn around and take a puff on my cigar and say, "Go faster, Maddox."
I literally, one time when I was living in Brooklyn, I was in Prospect Park, and I was bike riding, and I was trying to go up this hill, and I swear an old lady with a stroller went right by me. It was so embarrassing.
Well, so the biggest thing is understand this process, and understand that now I'm 3 years into it, and every time I go to dinner, every time I go to breakfast, lunch, what I do now is I activate my human part of my brain to say, am I hungry or am I not hungry? Is my brain just telling me that it wants me to consume calories? And then I use the human part of my brain, and I don't say I don't eat that. I do positive affirmations that say, this is what I eat. I eat healthy. I eat this food. And then my goal is to maintain this for 7 years. And if I can do that, then it will all start to be easier.
That's great. I mean, I try not to, I'm not going to deny myself food. I just won't eat the mass quantities.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be very cognizant of the fact that the average portion size has doubled in the last 40 years. That kind of stuff.
I do 2 squares of dark chocolate every night. And I don't buy the big bar. I buy the individual squares so that I portion control myself.
Right.
I still have pizza. I'll do it every 2 weeks. We'll have the pizza. So I'm not denying myself things that I love. Last night I found the greatest little ice cream shop, and I had 1 small scoop of chocolate ice cream. Now, it fits all my calories. I've been tracking every calorie that I've taken in for 4 years now. I know exactly what I'm eating, when I'm eating it. I think that works for me. It doesn't work for others. But for me, I have to know what's going in so that I'm balancing myself every day. And if you do that and you understand it's a 7-year journey to get to where you want to be, you'll get there.
Great. I love it. Anything else that you want to say in regards to your actual job as opposed to your fitness expertise?
Well, it's funny. It is all part of my actual job. I am a better person at my job because I am fit. And at 60 years old, I need the energy to be a better husband, a better father, a better businessman. So it's all part of it.
And with having those 4-year-olds at home as an older dad, it's you got a lot more that you got to focus on and keep that energy up.
Thanks for the older term.
Well,
you didn't say there's other words you could have chosen and you resisted.
I almost said mature, but that just sounds weird. You know? But yeah, keep it up. And thanks so much for talking to me today. And I really wish you the best of luck in this new role. And I can't wait to see once you learn what you actually take, where you take the brand to, and what you do with it.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Glenn.
Adrian. Appreciate it.
Bye.
And for you guys, hey, talk to you next time. Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.